There's no need for me to start this with a peace greeting because this is not peaceful. After thinking about it, I've decided to go ahead and address this to the Daggle. Now, if you're a lady listening and you wonder if you're in the Daggle category, it's actually fairly easy to tell, even though it's hard to tell before I say this. Here's how you can now tell. Daggles usually hold beliefs that are unfair to men, but they don't realize it because they don't think about these things simultaneously. However, if you're not a pick-me, then that leaves two options. One is that you're unconcerned and very neutral about what happens between men and women. You're not out to oppress men or harm them. You just don't really give a rat's behind about other people's business. Now, that would mean that you're not even listening to this. The other option is, if you're not a pick-me, that you're outright a Daggle who believes in standards, responsibilities, and duties for men without the rights. You believe that men owe you support and protection, and that you owe nothing in exchange, and that if you're unhappy or just bored with a man, you're supposed to leave because he's no good, and if he gets bored or even loses attraction for you due to changing drastically somehow, he's a dog for not staying. These beliefs make you a Daggle even if you're unaware of them simultaneously. Holding any of these beliefs and this combination makes you a Daggle. If you believe that men should undergo things for women through which you hope no woman ever puts your son, if you love him at all, then you're a Daggle. You may actually believe that men should undergo certain things for women in exchange for too little, and you think your son should have to go through the same thing. You're still a Daggle. I'll tell you right off the bat, this is not a peaceful message if you're one of them. Obviously, a peaceful message to someone like you from a man is unaffordable because I know the motivations of you Daggles. This is not for the women that are not Daggles. If you're not one of them, you can listen, but this is not addressed to you. If you have every intention of being fair to men, then you can listen if you want for entertainment, but this is not for you. Going back to you Dagglers, you want men to uphold our ends of the traditional bargains while you honor your feminist wishes and aspirations. You want modernism when it means you have more freedom, but you want traditionalism for the men whenever it means more of a burden for us. Many of you don't even want to see traditionalism when it's good for both genders or when it's convenient for both genders because you want specifically to see a man unhappy and stressed, which was proven in the study, and which men can prove anecdotally with crap tests if they make enough approaches. See, when Karen, Becky, and Amber do things against their own men, you take these same things and turn them up several notches against black men just to show that you're problematic, and then you call it strength. However, the reason I came with such militancy is that in addition to all of this, many of you will lie about it when we point it out. You love to friend zone normal black men who don't meet negative stereotypes, but you say it's for other reasons, and in the end, we can see it for what it is as we get older. It's really the lying that gets black men angrier at first and then dismissive and disaffected later on. See, when T.I. decided to check his stepdaughter's virginity, I was a bit ticked. For different reasons from you, the Daggle. I mean, it was kind of an invasion of privacy, but he's the one taking care of her, living under his roof, and he's the stepdad, not even the dad. And there isn't really a guarantee that she'll have a hymen when they check it. So even if she's innocent, she could be unfairly suspected of being a thought. And also because T.I. had no concern for his son's virginity, these were the reasons I actually had for being somewhat worried about this, but it's still their business. What bothered me was what I just told you. It was a Muslim of all women whose ex-husband apparently left her for another woman shortly after their son's birth that decided to challenge me about it. Like I'm T.I. Because I said that there was a correlation between Gabrielle Union's effeminization of Zion and Western women's real reasons for being upset at T.I., which had nothing to do with actually women's real true rights. She asked me about women's rights here in the Gulf where I live, and I answered that I don't see evidence of it. But I'm not allowed to walk up to them and ask them because this is the Gulf and I'm not related to them or married to them. So guess what? I can't walk up to a stranger and ask that. However, I'll ask my wife. She can ask ladies she knows some citizens. I'll tell you what she says. My wife asked, came back to me, I went back to her, and this Muslima back in the States kept saying that I didn't answer her questions after I answered them, and I later had to unfriend her. As a matter of fact, I did so this morning. She was being intellectually dishonest with her oopid stass. I experienced light-skin motivation doing the same thing whenever I said anything. Not unintentionally, actually, but intentionally misconstruing everything I or Selecta J said, period. Largely because we said that there wasn't some mechanism by which the light-skinned couple she wants to see form could form in the first place, because light-skinned women, not light-skinned men, but because light-skinned women weren't about to admit being interested in light-skinned men even when they feel this interest. We were reporting an observation, no shade, and she had to misconstrue everything. Even when I explained something that kind of backed up a point that she made, she turned around and tried to misconstrue my words, and so did some of her lady followers, as if to say that I'm an unfit parent, and they should be taken from me, even though the white man's financial system and job market and job discrimination already removed me from them. If I go back to the States, I'll never be able to earn a good income again, ever. It cannot happen. It's not because of my lack of education. It's not because of any of that. It's because America is run by a bunch of racist crackers. That's what that comes down to. Yes, it's white supremacy. No, it's not my fault. I did what I was supposed to do. SWP witnessed this intellectual dishonesty himself. He witnessed this from her, and he has no motive to lie on my behalf. So if you daggles doubt what I'm saying, you can ask him about it. It turns out she, all this time, was married to a darker brother and never disclosed this to begin with. Had she done so and said, well, he and I married before I was aware of any of this, but for you all, you still are going to have to form these couples because now the awareness is out there. If you're aware of this, you may have to form these couples to form another community that you want. This would have not discredited her. This undermined, though, the fact that she hid it all of this time, undermined the valid point she had about the necessity of pale Negroes in America fighting back against the hostile individuals, who themselves are not that common. But she had to close the channel and leave many traumatized bronze Africans without a support that they previously had. Today, the first thing that many of you will see the first thing that many of you will say in response to this red pill awareness that we men are developing of your interest is that we must be incels. We can't get women. We're GAY and we're just bitter over personal failures with women. And not even because you really believe these things are you going to say them, but because you are afraid to be exposed, you're going to say these things. Yet and still, Minister Jack gets women every weekend for what we can see in Chicago, and he has a channel with his face on it, excoriating black women specifically. Singling black women out specifically, saying far worse than what normal men with little experience in women have to say. Normal men talk about how we're lied to and that we've been shut out, but mostly about how we're lied to so that we be shut out. Jap and guys like him tell us about how trifling you daggles live in your private lives after putting up this front for us normal men that you don't want, which is fine, but from whom you want resources and support, which is why you put up a front to begin with. Studies have shown that most men won't succeed with women, but because women want very few men they see anyway. So that means it's not even the normal men's fault. They're normal. And you don't want to expose this. Why not say that from jump? We're now learning why you won't say that from the beginning. You rely on men you don't want below the belt to do everything for you except please you sexually, so that you can go to the men you do want below the belt and just do them for free and not ask them for anything that you might need, since you know they never had to have any of that substance with other women throwing themselves at them. You are also aware that you're in a competition to get those kinds of guys that other women chase down, to settle down and validate you with a commitment. But instead of just saying that to the men, normal men, you lie so that normal men spend years in confusion, told to second guess ourselves. And after years of this, what do you expect when the game you're playing gets exposed by the men who know, and a few honest women who will tell it like it is, so that men don't have to be insulted both financially and genetically? See, everything you're going to say about me personally, and who I didn't pull before, and what preferences you suspect I have hidden are only meant to discredit what we're learning about the game and the actual war in which you're engaged against men to separate us from our resources so that you can afford to not only screw the few that you want to screw for free, but to even pay them to keep screwing you when you get older at the expense of the responsible men to fund you while you financially compete with the younger women whom you used to be yourself, but with whom you can no longer compete based on looks. So in other words, you realize that there's going to come a day when you're going to have to pay these young guys to dig you out till you bust. Shout out to Steph Cleanscales. And you don't want to work for that money yourself, so you want a responsible, normal guy to be inexperienced enough to fall for this so that he pays you and then you pay the unattached wiener. The usual ad hominem tropes to which you're going to go, such as you GIY, you just mad because you couldn't get none, you just ugly, you just ain't alpha enough, you bitter, are all meant to hide the validity of what men have begun to learn and to share with younger guys so they can start off ahead in the game of not being a target of Western women's war games of both resource stripping and genetic annihilation of normal men. It is this that really gets my goat, and not because of my own life currently, but because of what it means for other normal black men in the West and also for black children who had nothing to do with this. It's actually because I'm so happy now that I understand what's been systemically and systematically kept away from normal men by you, the Daggles. Also, for the record, that dishonesty is what makes it okay for black men who aren't negative, stereotypical caricatures of black people to even be upset because of who they didn't pull and get to smut out. So in other words, being a mystery to men is a sign of something immoral to hide. And in the West, this is compounded with your outright lies about what you want and don't want, and now we know why. because you want only a few men to have children naturally, but you want many men to raise these children without having their own, and this is the height of a genetic insult. And we're saying, this is the game? Well, shuck that fit. And you knew that if we knew this, and your grandmothers and their grandmothers knew that if we knew this, we would have said, shuck that fit generations back. You see some men as food. And I came to not only teach men and boys to not be that food, but I came to turn the normal men and boys you see as food against any of you who try to treat us and consume us financially as such food. I came to turn your brothers against you, your nephews, and even your sons and grandsons, maybe even your fathers. But all with an exception and a caveat. The exception is when you don't deceive these men and you tell them as best you can articulate what they need to know about how women will assess them and what women will want to do to them. Those exceptional women don't even know I exist, but they're not in my sights anyway. See, Asada Muhammad knows I exist, but she's not making content. However, she's not driving her man away either. As an example, Jessica X knows I exist, but I'm not really on her radar. Kendra D knows I exist, but I'm not on her radar. You may have to ask her about me 3 times for her to remember, oh, that's right, Black Mind's channel. Your Black Heart, Black Mind, Blackest Man on social media to trigger her memory. They don't know I exist. I mean, most exceptional women don't know I exist. These few that I mentioned may know, and even they're likely to forget because I'm not in their sights. They're not in my sights. I mean, crosshairs. There's no reason to come in and divide their male relatives from them with this message because they're not participating in a deceptive message that ruins things between genders of an already oppressed race on a societal scale. See, I started my teens as a pro-black individual. Not because I worship blackness, but because black people didn't start the racial conflict or the racial oppression that I later learned was international and not just American. However, to use pro-blackness as a reason that men should have to stay and deal with the absolutely most abrasive woman surviving in modern times, the Wicked Witch of the West in the black community, is far more immoral than a black man only marrying and choosing other women of color, let alone when they choose the non-Western black women that most of us IBMOR and SYSBM men choose in real life. I witnessed men be race loyal even in their private lives to a demographic block of women who wouldn't return the favor except to avoid shame and ridicule from each other. Not by avoiding the oppressor's grandsons, but by avoiding their own men who were just not stereotypical, negatively stereotypical enough, or who are not recognizable visibly as being one of us. And I was actually willing to overlook those who avoided the second category, like myself, if it was out of race loyalty. And come to find out it's not because, as I've already said before, the unrecognizably black man, or the light-skinned or mixed black man, is not the one hopping the fence. He's the fence over which sisters hop when they go from a brother to master's grandson. So what I've said, all of what I've said before, is why I'm not only coming with a divisive message designed to give you a tough choice between two things you've already shown you can't stand, but also why I'm absolutely right for doing so, and why I would be wrong if I didn't come with this divisive message. You, the Daggle that has already grown, must choose between telling your sons the game, even if, especially if, it means telling on yourself, or losing him later on when he finds out from my camp anyway. Your daughters must choose between starting off their coupled lives, hopefully married, with a family man, the same one that's associated with not being man enough. And I'm talking about not only the normal men, but even the Urkels, or dooming themselves to the mercies of the fun men for whom there's an unending stream of competition from other women, no matter what resources these men don't have that you need, or even what resources these men may have and simply won't share with you that you need. The only good news is that because I'm Muslim, I won't tell men how to decisively win this war in a way that would drive almost all of you insane with grief by your late 20s, because I fear a hell in the afterlife. And it's waiting for me if I help anyone else get there. And it might be waiting for me already because I've done enough wrong in my life. And since I am Muslim, I actually don't advocate double standards sexually for men or women, but rather advocate for chastity for both. But it doesn't mean that I will not explain that the double standards are actually what you daggles uphold far more than any men do, as the entire world has witnessed some wicked witches of the West pass up virgin men for more experienced men, while Western men have overlooked Western women's lack of virginity as long as she's not insulting personally and sexually such men, only to have these same wicked witches of the West turn and insult personally and sexually and genetically these lesser experienced men anyway. Since I'm Muslim, I actually do believe that a woman should approve of who she'll marry, and so too shall a male representative of hers or male relative of hers actually. I actually do believe that he should approve of the character and she should approve of him personally before he marries her. But there are men out there who believe that a woman should have no say-so in who she marries because she'll never choose wisely, no exceptions, and that this means that if she wants to marry such a man that her dad approves of, he's already picked the wrong one. There are men who believe that. I'm not on that. Go thank Allah that I'm not. Since I'm not Muslim, I'm not here to oppress you daggles, but merely to not lose this war you Western daggles have waged on men by deception to take most men's resources while genetically shutting out these same ones, not even as individuals by not being sluts, but collectively by even pressuring each other to eliminate the same men so that there would always be a block of men inexperienced and ripe for your deception and dual mating strategy befitting of bears and not human beings. I'm here to tell your male relatives exactly what you don't want them to know at exactly the ages you don't think they should hear it. Yeah, I want you to experience not being trusted right off the bat by men and having to earn that which you want from us and wondering if it's just you. I want you to experience a market in which men are also valued sexually and would rather be by themselves and protect their resources and even peace of mind than to think they can't live without you and do so much for one of you who will only demand so much more than you will ever be, have, or do in exchange. I want you to experience having to either become Wonder Woman to qualify for your Superman or to remain the lowest lames you have insisted on being and having to either die alone or settle for Clark Kent because you're lowest lame. It's only fair. Thank Allah he guided me, because otherwise with what I know I could leak it and in 3 months the entire Western world would be a different civilization regardless of weather or viruses. And it would be great for men, and it would suck for you. And if you didn't teach your daughters to get with that new program, it would suck for them in the future too. The only options available to women would be exactly what you can't stand and think is too good a deal for men. Thank Allah, he guided me. But also understand that his guidance doesn't mean I will see the war for what it is and not ruin your plans to win it. After all, it wasn't Allah himself who created you or sent you into this cold war against us. He did not create you to fight with us, and he did not tell you to do so. It was your grandmother's materialism, unguided and later misguided lust and laziness that she passed down to you. She passed down to your moms who passed it down to you, and this is what led to this generation after generation, decade after decade. I may not have come to oppress you daggles, but I came for the men to win and for you to lose. Your choices are, you come clean like the pick-mes you despise, or be divided from your male relatives to whom you've lied. Black mind, black out, black heart, black heterosexual, non-select male power just because you daggles don't like it, and black patriarchy until extinction or judgment day.